Hi there, and welcome to Dark Side Racing. We are a super late model team. I say team, use that term very, very lightly because we are an exceptionally small team. And we race in the top division at a small track, a wonderful track named Norway Speedway, just on the border of Wisconsin and the Upper Peninsula of Michigan. And like I said, we're in the super late model division, so that's the top division there. They have several other divisions, which they have a sportsman division, which is which we really want to call it maybe a pure stock in other places. They have an 18-second time limit. A really fun, inexpensive division. We have a super stock division there as well, and then we have the Wisconsin super trucks, and those things are really cool. They're powered by, I think, like Rotax motors that you would put in snow wheels and stuff. I think that's kind of how it goes. But that division, and then we have 4-cylinder class 2. So we're the top division there, and the reason why I wanted to create this channel was because grassroots racing on the whole across the board is struggling. We are barely really hanging on, maintaining, with the exception of a couple super popular tracks throughout the country. A lot of grassroots tracks are really struggling just to, put on a show every week and things like that. And I wanted to make this channel because I wanted to reach out to people who maybe don't even realize that there's grassroots racing that they can get into. Maybe they're interested in motorsports. And that this is an avenue that they might not be aware of, that they could take to get involved in racing. But I also wanted to show kind of, I don't want to say an extreme example, but a very, very strong example of how you can go racing in a top division on a very limited budget with very limited manpower. So a little bit about me. I started racing when I was 40 years old. I'm 49 years old now. And I've been in sim racing ever since, oh God, I would probably say 1990, maybe 1987, 88, somewhere in there. Right whenever personal computing started getting bigger, you're at home and PC gaming and things like that. I got into sim racing there, and I sim raced from, like I said, the late 80s, early 90s, all the way up, and I still do it today. But at 40 years old, I don't know, I was probably maybe 37. When did I start iRacing? 2012, I believe it was. And so I've been iRacing ever since, and it just got to the point where I actually I'm a pilot, and I own my own airplane. After I got out of the Air Force, I bought an airplane, and I sold the airplane, so I had capital sitting around, and I was playing iRacing, and I said, you know what, I really want to go do this. So I was fortunate enough to have some good amount of startup money to go racing. And when I say a good amount of startup racing, I mean somewhere in the vicinity of like $10,000. And I will explain to you that is the worst. I'm going to explain to you the worst way to go about getting into racing. And I will explain to you how I should have gone about going into racing. So I jumped right into super stocks, which is like your old Chevy Monte Carlos, metric. I think they're G bodies from like the late 70s to the 80s, and I think they kind of tapered out that body style, like full frame stuff in the 80s. So did that for about three years, and I jumped up to super late models. But what I did, and the absolute worst way to get into racing, is I built a car pretty much from scratch. I'm talking like how to buy bolts, how to buy nuts, I had to buy, any component that went into a race car, I had to buy it. It was new. It was a brand new race car, and that race car that should have cost me somewhere around, I don't know, for a turnkey super late, I'd probably say somewhere in the vicinity of maybe between $5,000 and $7,000. It cost me roughly in the vicinity of $18,000 to build, and that's absurd. That was the dumbest thing you can possibly do. So step number one of getting into racing, don't build your own car from scratch. buy a turnkey, or at very least what we call a roller. A turnkey car is basically, here's the car, we got it off the track, we're getting out of racing, maybe we're changing divisions, maybe we're going in a different direction on the race team, and we just need to sell this car, get it out of the shop so we can make room for the new stuff. So you buy a turnkey car, which is basically ready to go right out on the racetrack. And that is usually the most economical way to go about getting into racing. And it is the most time-saving way to go about getting into racing, is buying a turnkey car. When you buy a roller, that is essentially what we call a car that doesn't have an engine or a drivetrain. And, well, I shouldn't say not a drivetrain. It doesn't have an engine or transmission. And a lot of the times with a roller, you won't find a seat in the car, because seats are usually sort of tailored to the driver as far as how wide they are, because we're all different sizes and things like that. But seats, just for gee whiz note, are measured in like hip width, anywhere between 14 for a really skinny person to 17 inches wide for a big hefty driver. And so that's usually what a roller is. A roller, no engine, no transmission, sometimes no seat. It just depends. But usually anything's negotiable. So sometimes people will sell a roller at one price, but a turnkey at a different price if they want to toss in the engine and transmission for you. So the best way of getting into racing is do not build a car from scratch. So I'm a very, very, what we call a low budget racer, right? And what we mean by that is I have a set budget that I am comfortable with, and it changes from year to year. It's not a hard number, but there's a threshold that you get to that you're like, I'm not getting the utility out of the money that I'm spending, right? The personal utility. So there's people out there, there's teams out there that will go every year buy the newest and greatest stuff you can put into your car, and they don't care about spending. And there's nothing wrong with this, right? So if the team's out there and they're like, hey, this is the newest technology and the next greatest thing, and we're going to spend $5,000 just to put this component in the car, and spend hours reconfiguring the race car to go racing, just so we can find a tenth of a second, maybe 2/10 of a second. Those are high budget, what I would determine as high budget teams. And hey, more power to y'all. That's awesome. Those are teams with a lot of sponsorship and everything like that. And they have a lot of, they have the capability of personal investment into the team. And that is awesome. So right off the bat, when I'm coming at this as a low budget racer, I am in no way trying to bash big money teams. Not in the least bit. I think it's awesome. I'm happy for teams who are able to, and have achieved that, and have able to have a larger budget than I got. But so I have 2 young kids. My wife is very, very busy. She's a professional photographer. She is a healthcare professional. She's very, very busy. So, and I'm very busy too. So I have my career, and then I have my racing, and I have my iRacing league that I run. And then obviously, we have our kids. So, as soon as you start having kids, your family and all of your time become child-centric, right? So like everything goes around the kids. So like I get to come in the garage, or I go iRacing after the kids go to bed, or a few hours during the week whenever they're at daycare and I'm off of work early. And or I'll take opportunities, like this weekend my wife is having, she's on a girls' trip with some of her girlfriends, and they took all the kids with them, So, hey, I got a weekend in the garage by myself, or sometimes, my parents help out a lot on Fridays because I'm off on Fridays, and they'll come over and they'll get to spend time with the girls while I come in the shop. So you have to be really, really creative with how much time you have to, invest, and where you invest your time in the shop. Because I'm turning wrenches by myself. So, I don't really have a lot of support in the garage. I have a couple guys that come out to the racetrack and they help, in the pits and things like that. And that is awesome. So that segues into what else do you need? You do need a lot of support. You really do. And racing is a lifestyle. A lot of, you just don't kind of like go racing just very casually. I guess I'm going to take the car out tonight. It's like, if like you have a Jeep, you like going off road and stuff like that in a Jeep. Hey, you know what? I'm busy this weekend. I'm not going to go Jeeping, with my buddies. And with racing, you put so much investment in it. Anytime you should be on the track, you're on the track. Anytime you should be working on the race car, you're working on the race car. So you have to have a lot of support. It's very difficult. Take it from me. Even as a single person, it was a lot of investment, time, and money to come into this. But on the flip side of that, it is massively rewarding. This is one of the few things that the average person is going to take on as an endeavor and get so much satisfaction out of it. You're building things, you're creating things. You're not just building things to sit them on the shelf and admire them. You are building a race car. You are learning about how the physics behind a race car, what makes it go, what makes it handle properly. There's so much learning that goes on involved. And whenever you go out onto the racetrack and you start utilizing what you've created, it is a massively, massively rewarding experience. And it's rewarding for your family too, if you can get brothers and sisters and wives and stuff like that, like there's a lot of folks at the track, drivers at the track, whose significant others are a very important part of their team. Like I said, when my wife can come out to the track, she's at the track. When she's there, she's helping. And I'm very, very fortunate that my wife came from a racing family, right? So her stepdad raced, and he raced serious racing, right? So she saw how it was growing up, so she's already a part of that. So I was kind of fortunate on that aspect. But if you can bring your family into the fold of this, then everybody gets to participate. Racing is one of those generational sports too, right? So I have, like I said, I've been at Norway for 5 or 6 years, and I've watched drivers with their kids, come into racing too. Like kids that were just kind of running around helping mom or dad out at the track, and then next they're in a car and they're winning races, right? And so it is a generational sport. And so as a low budget racer and things like that, what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be explaining to you the tips and tricks that I find and have found of how to work on your car and how to set things up and how to position yourself to squeeze the most out of your time that you invest as possible. I'm going to tell you all the pitfalls that I've made. There's a lot, so I may forget some, but if I've made a mistake and I zigged when I should have zagged, I'm going to tell you about it. If I spend money and it was wasted, and I do not like wasting money, okay? Because you can make a mistake, and it can be very expensive, okay? As a matter of fact, the mistake that I had whenever I put on the new body on the race car, I don't know if you can see right here, but this is cracked. We call this the greenhouse, essentially the roof, and it's cracked because I took away too much material on the inside to get around the roll bar, and that weakened it, and now it's cracked. Mistake, very expensive mistake. This is probably, I probably want to say $200 part. Ruined it. I can fix it, but it isn't right. Okay, so it isn't. I modified a piece of this body panel that should not have been modified like it was, and it's cracked. So now I have to go back and fix it. So I'm going to tell you stuff like that. And I'm going to show you some of the best values as far as pieces and parts and things like that that I found. And by no means, this is a nice segue into the next section as far as family is concerned. By no means is this learning curve solo. Okay, you learn a lot of stuff on your own, but the racing community, most races, and they got the heater going, so I just kicked on. I hope it's all right. You can still hear me. The racing community, on the whole, we understand the position that we're in. Okay, we understand that we're having trouble putting cars on racetrack, and back in the 70s and the 80s and the 90s, especially during the explosion of NASCAR, you could easily have 100 cars at the track, 150 cars at the track between a few different divisions. In the late models, you have 50 late models show up on a weekend. That's just like normal, and if not more. You have, 4 or 5 heats. You have, if not a few more, you have, B features and filled B features. I'm talking like 15, 20 cars in a B feature. A features. We don't have that anymore, right? So if we average 12 to 15 late models on a race weekend, we are very, very happy, right? We're like, it's a good weekend. Some of our specials, some of the big races that actually pay out more than our normal like weekly races. When I say pay out, it's like $1,500 to win. Maybe we may have a couple bigger races this year coming. Maybe a few $1,000s to win. Maybe it's $5,000 to win. I have to double check. I don't pay attention because I ain't winning them. I'm just happy to make the show, the main feature. I call that a victory. So it's kind of like a family thing, even at your local grassroots racing, track, right? So, like I said, we know what position that we're in, and we want people to come out onto the races in the stands. We want people to come into the pits and hang out with us. We want ultimately more people getting into racing, building race cars, buying race cars that are sitting in someone's shop that just aren't being used. Come out to the track and go racing with us. So the knowledge that you gain just isn't on your own, right? So this isn't a solo adventure because, like I said, we all know the condition of grassroots racing in America. And I am talking about asphalt racing. Dirt racing in America is very strong, okay? They have a very strong culture. They have a very strong industry, if you want to call it that. Asphalt racing is a little bit less, and I don't know where we went astray. Because like I said, we were on par with dirt racing, and I just don't understand where we kind of went astray. But hopefully we'll, doing stuff like this, trying to reach out and engage with people. Hopefully, more teams do this and just show you kind of behind the scenes stuff. But I keep getting on a tangent. So the things that you're going to learn are not all by yourself, for like the 8th time that I've said that. Like I said, we want to help people, right? So when you go to the track and you bring a race car and you're a brand new racer, you can ask questions to just about anybody, anyone in your division. They are going to try and help you, okay? And maybe this is a Midwest thing. I hope it's all over the place. But we're in the upper Midwest, right? So Midwest racing is like Wisconsin, Illinois, and maybe down even in Indiana. But Midwest racing is kind of like the stomping grounds of like Dick Trickle, okay? The guy who would sit there with a beer after every race, or sit there with a cigarette before the race, go to all the new people, help them as much as he possibly could to get their cars performing better. And one of the big reasons why he did that, he would always say, rest his soul, that the better your car works, the less of a chance there is for you to wreck and take me out with you. So if you're a new person, you're going to the track, we're a family there too, okay? We're a highly competitive, semi-dysfunctional family, but overall, you're going to get a lot of help, okay? Like I said, I remember when I first started here, I started at the local track. It's only like, a few miles down the road. It's a quarter-mile track, Sand Speedway, and I was very, very fortunate to start at a track that has more of like a racing club kind of philosophy and ideology. So yeah, we raced, but it was really more about learning and teaching and the camaraderie and things like that. So we'd all go racing, and then we go to somebody's house. They had a nice big garage, and they'd have a whole spread out, right? They have crock pots, cooking stuff all day while we were at the track, and then we'd go back and we'd sit around and shoot the BS and have fun talking about the race day. So then whenever I went to Norway Speedway, and unfortunately you're gonna see this too, especially tracks that might be close together, there's a little bit of a, I don't want to say a rift, but it's like they don't really get along, and they should get along, right? So whenever I started thinking about going to Norway, when I was racing at Sands, there was a lot of, you don't want to go there. They tear up race cars. They're not very welcoming and things like that. But it just got to the point where I was like, well, I'm just going to go check it out. And from the first day that I went there, they were welcoming. Okay, where the misconception came in. Okay, so this is just neat information, but this is hopefully a little bit of, hey, maybe things aren't always exactly what they seem and how they've been described to me. So Sand Speedway is one of the most unique racetracks I've ever seen, right? So it's built on a hill. So the front straightaway is about 30 feet, if not more, higher than the back straightaway. And then all the people sit up on top of the hill. That's where stands are. Sand Speedway is more of a road course, so they take more of a road course mentality of it, because if you get in an accident, there's like a retaining wall on the front stretch, and the track is very narrow. So like if you wreck somebody, you send them into that wall, their car's destroyed. If you miss the wall, you go over a hill, down into the trees, okay? If you go off the track going into turn 3, you are what we call in the mulberry bushes, right? You're off into the wilderness. So they race like road course racers race. Norway Speedway is a traditional oval track, right? And they are much more aggressive on how they race, because nobody wants to wreck anybody, but you will stick your nose in a little more freely there than you would at Sands. So when you do get into somebody, and I've done it, and it's been done to me, when you spin out, you just kind of like spin out onto the grass, and you just get yourself back on track and you go. Like, you're not hitting anything, right? You're not crashing into the wilderness. So the racing there is a little more aggressive, and I think that's kind of maybe where the misconception came in. But whenever I went there, it was very, very welcoming. So the inspector came down, looked at my car, and he was like, okay, hey, you can come race with us today. But, he started measuring things, and he started looking at some of the bigger stuff, and he's like, you need to weigh this the next time you come back. And, you comply and everything like that. And, that first day, the people that were pitting right next to me, they're like, hey, welcome, here's some food, But then as I got into super lates and things like that, you start pitting in a different place because we need pit slabs and things. And by that time, I was dating my wife, and her brother was really good friends with the people that pitted next to us. And the mentorship that those people gave me over 3-4 years is incredible. if you need something, somebody's going to say, hey, go talk to so-and-so down there at the number, 57 pit, whatever. Go talk to them. They have that stuff. And you can go down there like, hey, excuse me, I'm driver number 45. I have this issue. Like, would you happen to have a valve cover gasket? Sure. Here. And then the next week, you just replace it. You give it back to them. People on the other side of me, I broke a fitting one day, and on the breather on my rear end, and I couldn't go racing because like the rear end gear oil would just spill out. And they're like, here, we got one of those. Here you go. How much was it? The next week, because I couldn't find it. I'm like, how much was that thing? And we're like, oh, it's $15. Here's $15. Thank you so much. But the mentorship, just beyond that, as far as helping people, like, hey, do this with the car. This is how you adjust the suspension. This is the best way to go. What's it doing? Show me all your numbers and things when you come off the track and you take all your tire temperatures and your tire pressures and things like that. And hey, how is it handling? Oh, you should probably try this. We do X, Y, and Z, and that really works for us. Maybe you can try Y and Z for you and see how that works. So the main point to take away from all this is that there is a lot of desire to help new drivers whenever you go to a racetrack. So step one of how to go racing is, when you decide to go racing, do a little bit of research on some of the tracks around you. Look at their divisions. Most tracks have a website. You can go to their website, look at the divisions that they're in. A lot of tracks have their rules right there, and you may not be able to wrap your head around all the rules because there's some stuff, especially if you're not in racing at all, there's things in there that you have no idea. They're completely foreign concepts to you. But you go, oh, I think I just, I don't want a large investment. I just want to kind of like dip my toe into racing and things like that. And, I'm just going to, their 4-cylinder division looks like a lot of fun. Okay, go to the racetrack. On the nights that they race, buy a pit pass. It's usually about maybe $10 to $15 more than going into the general admission up in the stands. And just go sit there and watch. Okay? Usually before the races, people are super busy. During the races, it's pandemonium. And after the races, when everybody calms down and everything like that, that's when you start to go, and that's the best time to go and start talking to people. Just walk up to a pit, maybe even somebody who won. They'll be in a good mood. Walk up to them and introduce yourself. It's like, hi, my name's so-and-so. I'm looking to get into racing. I'm looking to get into this division. What would you suggest? How would you suggest that I do that? And I guarantee you, before you leave that night, chances are you're probably going to have a line on buying a car, because they're going to be like, oh yeah, so-and-so down there is getting out of racing next year, so go talk to them. Or hey, they have a second car that's been sitting in their garage for 2 years, and they might sell it to you cheap, just to get it out of their shop. So step one is to research the track, research what division you might be interested in, go to the racetrack, get a pit pass, go into the pits, take it all in during the race, and then go talk to people after. That's step one. Once you do that, do not build a car by yourself from scratch. Don't do it. That's step two. A lot of people, because they don't want to see you get screwed over either. So a lot of people say, yeah, that car right there, it's really, really old. Okay. So like the chassis that I had before this one was left-hander chassis number 123. This chassis is left-hander number 2,492. Okay. The old chassis was from 1990. This is from 2007. The technology is much more advanced. But more importantly, an old race car, from going around the track, builds in a lot of twists. It actually bends, and that affects the handling negatively. Whenever I got rid of the old chassis, I tried to get rid of it, but just give it away, and nobody really wanted it. So I had to cut it up to take it to the recycling place. But as soon as I cut one of the frame rails, the whole thing, all the tension let go, and it was like an inch and a half of twist in the frame. But try to stay away from older cars. And when you go down there, start getting people's telephone numbers. When you go into the pits, start talking to people. Maybe get on Facebook. They're gonna hopefully ask. Oh, actually, you should ask, and maybe hopefully they'll just volunteer this information. Hey, this is our racing association board member. Hey, this is the president. Go talk to the president, or go talk to the vice president, or whatever. Go talk to the board member of the governing body of that racing series, and they'll help you too, because the more cars they have on track, the better the association does. Also, I hate having to talk about stuff like this. It's 2023, but unfortunately you have to. Everybody is welcome at the racetrack, right? Everybody. We have massively talented female drivers. Massively talented. And we have a bunch of them too. And yeah, traditionally, auto racing has been a sport that has just been populated by men. Okay? And I personally, I just think it was just a generational thing. Girls weren't interested on the whole. Back in the 70s, 60s, 80s, and things like that, it just wasn't on their radar. It wasn't so much that, and believe me, there's a little bit of bigotry and sexism there. I'm not saying that there wasn't. But, as long as you're a competent race car driver and you're safe and you understand your skill level and you're not out there being a weapon, anybody, it doesn't matter what gender you are, it doesn't matter what color you are, it does not matter. If you're a weapon, we are not going to take kindly to it. It doesn't matter who you are. So we just want people that if you're new, want to learn, know your skill level, drive within your skill level, and like I said, learn. But Norway, we have a ton of girl drivers, and they do great. They will put a whipping on anybody. It doesn't matter. People of color, it doesn't matter. Come racing with us. We don't care. As long as, like I said, you're willing to learn, you're as safe as you possibly can be. Everyone makes mistakes. If you make a mistake on the racetrack and you feel bad about it, and you don't want to go and apologize. You can go and apologize, but normally they're so pissed off they don't even want to talk to you. But I hope you're picking up what I'm laying down. As long as you try to improve and you're not a weapon on the racetrack and everything like that, you're welcome. You're welcome to come to the races. You're welcome to come and bring a race car and come racing with us. We need more participation, and we want to see everybody enjoy this incredibly amazing, fulfilling sport that we're all a part of. We really do. And I don't even know how to even put it any more than I already have, but it doesn't matter who you are. If you come down and you're cool and you're friendly, and the biggest thing is you just want to learn, and you understand that you don't know as much as maybe you think you do, and you come down and you try and be a positive impact on that particular track, you're welcome. Everyone's always skeptical of the new folks, but until they prove themselves. I don't want anybody to think that, because I am too. I'll be friendly with you, but until I race next to you and you don't destroy my race car, I'm not going to trust you. So I hope that if you're coming out and you get this weird vibe, I hope you don't automatically take it as bigotry. I hope that you take it as these people just don't know me yet. And I have to prove to them that I belong here. Not as far as gender or race or something like that. As a race car driver, you know, I am a race car driver, and I have to build trust with the other people in the pits. And until I do that, I may get some weird vibes. Okay? I hope you take it as that, and not as some, you know, form of bigotry. So I'm going to end off with that. Like I said, we want as many people to come out to the races as possible. I'm going to try and show you how somebody who is on a limited budget can go racing at a track's top division, with a family, carving out as much possible time as they can, so I don't have a lot of time to work on race cars and build things and fix things and things like that, and how to do it on a limited budget. Okay, so should be a fun journey. So I hope you stick around. Thanks for watching. See you next time.